Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Sunday, October 18th, Monday, October 19th for those of you across the pond and beyond. Welcome to We Are Maradox Medias Late Night in the Rockies. I'm so glad you guys could join us this evening. I'm your host, TessaTNT, and I hope you guys have had an awesome weekend so far. The weather's been lovely. It's Halloween season. And the weekends are just amazing. I really enjoy them. So right now, if you're listening to us, you're listening live on Spreaker.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Tumblr, YouTube, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, Deezer, as well as Podcast Addict. So tonight I have a treat for all of my guys and gals out there. Tonight we will be talking to and getting to know Paul Vecchiet, and we will be discussing him as well as his book, The Disclosure Paradox. So Paul Vecchiet was born in Italy and arrived in the U.S. at the age of 3, settled in Chicago for a couple years, then moved to the southwest suburb of Hickory Hills. Paul went to Catholic school the entire 8 years of elementary school. After graduating high school, Paul was admitted to UIC for architecture, earned a degree in design in 1981. Paul joined the Air Force in 1982 and got commissioned as a second lieutenant. Paul is currently working for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in Winchester, Virginia. Welcome, Paul, and thanks so much for coming out and hanging out with us tonight.
Hi, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So I'm super excited to have you on, and I was telling you before, you had sent me a cheat sheet, and I've never gotten something like that before, so it was a rare advantage, except for reading the details of this book. I really wish that I could have read it before we did our interview, but can you tell us a little bit more about you and your history and what led you on the path to writing this book?
Sure. The book actually is almost like a autobiography. I would say it's a pseudo autobiography. So there's a lot of truth in there, and it starts out with the main character, who would be me, with the starting out and developing the belief system, and because being brought up as a Catholic, I had a very difficult time really taking it in as and accepted, even at a very young age. So that kind of started me on the path where I ended up here. Through the years, into high school and stuff, I got to understand a little bit more about the other world aside from Catholic school, since I had a Catholic school for 8 years, and it opened me up to actually understanding critical thinking, opening up our horizons beyond what we were taught in geography. For instance, in Catholic school, you're just taught about the places that are relevant to the faith. But if you have world geography in public school, it's a little different. At least that's how it was when I was that age. So the real big part of starting off where I was, besides being brought up Catholic and not really having a comfort with the faith, is being an officer in the Air Force, and I detail that in the chapter called Into the Rabbit Hole, which is the second chapter, where the main character discovers a secret basement in a facility on an Air Force base, and looking at drawings which should have been classified secret, even beyond secret, he discovers not only that there's a secret basement, but there's also a cryogenic chamber in that basement. So that was one event that started me on this path. And from then on, I just had a curiosity about UFOs, about I guess certain conspiracy theories, understanding about energy and how we are and why we are so dependent upon a technology that is from the 19th century, where we are already in the 21st century and we're still using that technology. Things like that. And when you get into the interest of UFOs and of alternative energies and conspiracy theories, for lack of a better word, you start to get into a world where I call getting into the rabbit hole, where you start to learn other things, and you start to actually, I've always been kind of spiritual, not religious, but I've always believed that there's something out there. And when you get into the rabbit hole, you learn a little about other belief systems. You learn about contacts, people that have had contact, and people that have had information from this contact that explains our spirituality. But most importantly, you start to meet people that eventually become a major influence in the way that you set about. And if it wasn't for several psychic women who would tell me in various ways, but really the same message was that there's something special about me, I would not be going in this direction. And only when I understood that after, I guess after 2009, things really started to happen to me. Synchronicity, all kinds of stuff. I took up meditation, and with meditation, I was actually able to have the ability to go through a wormhole. And then the other out-of-body experience was discovering what the source energy was about, and seeing that. So there were a lot of experiences that I had. There were these transmissions that I got from a psychic woman who would go into a trance, and she would be writing what the information she was getting that was supposed to be transmitted towards me. And all of these things I documented in a blog. Well, when I got into the military again, I stopped doing the blog, but I did keep all that documentation, and I decided that it was time to document this stuff and get this information out there, because there was a lot of information that I felt needed to be passed on to people. And the only way to do it, if I did it through a memoir, it would have been boring, first of all, because there's really nothing exciting about spirituality over a decade. So what I did is I took the message that I wanted to convey, and I took that decade of my spiritual experiences and transmissions with these beings that call themselves the Watchers. I condensed it into a 2-week dynamic road trip, cross-country road trip, where the main character meets up with the people that eventually influences him, and the goal, the objective, was to reach Mount Shasta. So that's pretty much the anatomy of the book. And everything that, like I said, everything that occurred to me, from day one to present day is all documented in that book, but under a pseudonym, under a the main character being a ufologist, which I'm not, but I had to make him a ufologist to make the plot work.
I'm sorry, but like you were saying, this is like a biography, so you're writing it due to experiences that you had. And going back to, the Catholic Church, like as a kid, I sought out religion, like why so many things. I had questions, so I sought out different religions, and especially when I was in the military, I was in the Marine Corps, and you had everything like right there at the fingertips, and you can check out each church and see what they have to say. But I do use certain things like the St. Michael prayer and wear the St. Michael medallion. Um, I have belief in certain things as far as what they have to say, and even before the government came out and said, yeah, there's UFOs and they do exist, the Catholic Church did. But I know a lot of people that have grown up in the Catholic Church that do have a lot of issues due to it. Um, do you think that helped you to strive to figure out what's on the other side, or was it due to experiences that you may have had as a younger person?
Well, first of all, as I mentioned, I was very uncomfortable with the way that they were teaching us. I was uncomfortable with the image of the nuns being asexual as they are. I was I was extremely emotional when it came time for the nuns to describe like the events towards the crucifixion. Very graphic information for a child of 6 or 7 years old, and and they were teaching by memory. The prayers were by memory. The hymns were by memory. The terminology, which when you're 6, 7 years old, someone tells you, the word virgin. It's a lot of people a lot of kids just accepted it. Okay, virgin. But did we really know what that meant? No. Assumption, all these big words that they had: assumption, contrition, all of those things, which are an essential part of the Catholic faith, but they really didn't do a good job of explaining, getting down to our level, and I just never was comfortable with it. I struggled throughout my life until teenage years, because at least I struggle with, not with the faith, but just struggle with understanding our relationship with whatever higher beings there are, and with all of those religions, like okay, someone must have it right, but and they all have their differences. So I had a struggle until by accident I heard an interview with Eric von Daniken about his book, and he described passages in the Bible that were really documentation of extraterrestrial contact with individuals that really weren't sophisticated enough to understand the extraterrestrial contact. That what they did is they just wrote off as something supernatural and credited to being of God. So the one I guess evidence that Von Daniken mentioned was the book of Ezekiel, and I think that's very popular right now in the ancient aliens theory. But once I heard that, it kind of was an eye opener for me. Like, oh yeah, that's probably what's going on. Where maybe that's part of the puzzle as far as understanding our relationship with God and what God is. So that's where I started out with, and again, it wasn't enough to give me all the answers, but it certainly allowed me to be questioning a lot of things that were happening, where people were trying to tell me about getting back to church and religion.
Yeah, and it is interesting, the way people are raised, what their faith is, and like you said, a lot of people just gulp it up and don't ask questions, they just accept it. Um, I eventually got into the LDS church and would go to seminary in high school, and it was a relief for me because the woman that taught seminary had questions about the paranormal, questions about UFOs and aliens, so on and so forth, and she's the only one that I've ever known within the church that would give me actual factual like answers. Yeah, there are aliens, and we're the last ones left, and they're waiting on us to go through our cycle or whatnot. But my sister and I were talking the other day about the way we've always thought of God and how through our different experiences our vision, our perception of him has changed. Like we still believe that there is a God, maybe a heavenly father and heavenly mother because of certain things that are said, but could it be some sort of other being, like not even this grand being that you're thinking of? This could be an alien race. Um, and even looking at photos of the Virgin Mary holding little baby Jesus, in the background you see these UFOs like basically having war in the sky behind her. Um, there's so many questions that they generally don't divulge in, but sometimes you'll get that person that you can ask questions. Did you ever have anybody like that, or everybody was just like, to the point and not divulging anything?
Well, one individual that he's passed on, but has been very popular in the circles of ufology, is Robert Dean, and he's had contact, and the entities that contacted him explained to him a little bit about our planet, our relationship with the rest of the universe, and our own spirituality and things like that. And what he got, because I was very interested in his work and what he's trying to convey to us. But it is interesting that what he got was the kind of messages that I got from the watchers through that one psychic woman. So right there, tells you that he was right on the right track about trying to inform the public about what is fact regarding our spirituality and our relationship with the rest of the universe.
Yeah, it's like we as individuals and things around us on our planet, I can see auras on them. Like we all have that energy within us. It's pretty intriguing. So what are the some of the concepts that he had that really triggered you as far as, you know, developing this
Well, the
spiritual?
one is that he mentioned that the extraterrestrials refer to this planet as Earth School because it is where the spirit enters the human body. Well, it doesn't enter it, it links with the human body. And this is like a kindergarten for spirits. So this is where we learn about love, about creativity, the arts. We even learn about pain and suffering. All of those elements that make us understand the human condition is where we learn this. And according to him, when we pass on, if we learned our lesson, then we go to another level. If we don't learn our lesson, then we come back and learn it again. That's why this planet, as he mentioned, is more important to the rest of the universe and the way the whole universe works than the human race itself. So when we exploded the atomic bomb over Nagasaki and Hiroshima, that was like a fire alarm throughout the universe. And that's where we had a spike in UFO appearances and even contacts, because they were concerned about us having a technology where we were not spiritually advanced enough to be able to accept it. That's the essence that Bob Dean was telling us. And if you follow alternative news, and if you follow a certain aspect of ufology where these sightings are most evident, it is around areas where we have nuclear warheads stored, or where we have tested them, or where they're hiding. There had been a shutdown at Malmstrom Air Force Base in '67, where a UFO appeared over a flight and shut down the silos, and that was well documented. And I think the one of the captains that was at the site, he still does his talks around the circuit. And then, of course, there was the Rendlesham Forest in this incident, and that was at a base where we had tactical nuclear warheads, which were supposed to have been actually secret because of the critical nature of having nuclear warheads in England at that time. It was politically a hot potato for the United States and Reagan. So that essentially, those are the main points that Bob was trying to convey to us, and those are the points that I'm also making in my novel.
Yeah, it's amazing what's out there. With my kids, the only one that I know that is a past life because of things she told me about her life before, she just blows me away with the intelligence and everything. And, I've always believed in UFOs and aliens due to what my dad would say. I had experienced the paranormal for all my life, but it was in 2012 when we had our first sighting. And generally before I'd hear about the Watchers and such, I imagine angels or, other ethereal beings or whatnot watching us and not really doing a thing, just taking record of it. But this thing I saw was kind of like a Foo Fighter, but it was orange in color. The first one I saw, because it was so high up in the sky, and it had followed us from Ignacio, Colorado, all the way to a point where you come into Bayfield. And my daughters are watching it the whole time. I can't see it until I stop at the stop sign and I get out, and Nova's like, "What are you doing? Like, can we just go home? I just want to go home." And I'm like, "I want to see what you guys are talking about." And I look up and I see this orange ball. At this time, I'm pregnant with my son, who's 8 years old now. That's the very first actual UFO that I know of that I ever saw. Shortly after he was born, I think he was 2 months old, I see another one, and it's larger this time because it's closer. It's only about, well, at first when I see it, 40 feet away, and then 15 to 20. But it was the same thing. It looked like a glass ball with liquid fire, or somebody said plasma, rolling through it. It was red and orange and yellow, and it was going in like a clockwise fashion. And it was at a slow walking pace along my back fence. And I put my son down. I'm trying to manipulate my cell phone to where I could take video of it, but I can't. I'm just like fidgeting so bad. I put it down. I open the door and step out. And as soon as I stepped out, I'm like, I don't know what this thing's intention is, what it might do to me. So I stepped back in and closed the door and called the family over. And what's intriguing to me is my two daughters saw the same thing that I did. But to my husband, he said he saw the glass like orb shield, whatever it was, around it, and he saw a very large bat that was glowing, flapping its wings at a slow rate of speed. So it makes me wonder, is this trying to use this shield or some sort of thing to make us see something else, or I don't know exactly what that is. So are those watchers? Like, are they just keeping track of what we're doing as human beings, or do you know what those are?
Yes, I believe that at least the information that I got from them is that they're monitoring our progress or lack of progress. They're um, they they assist us not directly, but through other humans, and they've indicated in the transmission to me that my role, which I finally discovered after all these women would tell me that my role is special, was to be a counselor and informer. Simple as that. Not a warrior, not anything, not a leader or anything, just a counselor and informer. And they would tell me often, just keep doing what you're doing. Were they had my back, so to speak, and I think they indicated they were also protecting me spiritually from any archons that may show up. Archons being a multi-dimensional kind of demon, and so the Watchers are indeed a benevolent entity that are, I think they are just below the level of the angelic realm. So they're pretty high up there.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, it makes me wonder because my kids have. Okay, so I used to work security before the COVID thing happened, and I'd call and talk to my kids before they went to bed, and my daughter starts telling me this story about there was a UFO in the backyard, which is right back here behind my studio, and she said her and her brother were being led by aliens onto this ship, and she said the spaceship started to rise up, and Floyd jumped out, and so she jumped out too, and she said Floyd tripped, and then that's when Floyd piped up and said, "I didn't trip, you tripped," and they argued back and forth. And at that point, I realized this is not a dream. Like, this is an actual experience that they had. So
Wow.
my mind is just blown. Like, what do they want? What are they doing? Are my kids okay? Um,
Yeah. So are you near a military installation?
I think Colorado Springs might be like 6 or 7 hours from here, but we're in the southwest corner, so we
Yeah.
could be close to stuff in New Mexico as well as Arizona or whatnot. But I know for sure Colorado Springs.
Okay. Because I have a theory that a lot of the abductions happen around military, installations, and um, interestingly enough, there a lot of abducted people were in military families too. So I think there's a link there.
That's interesting, and I've heard people saying like they think that these abductions and other things are military because of where they
Oh yeah.
are located. Do you think it is involved with the military, or do you think it's just something that's checking out people around this perimeter?
First of all, there are there are two types of military. There are the ones that we know about, and even the ones that are involved in top secret or secret stuff. That was what I would call the conventional um, military. But I think the arm of the military that is involved with either the suppression or involved with research on UFOs, that is really hush hush stuff. I don't think it's government related. I think that it is really what Eisenhower was trying to warn us about, and probably why Kennedy was assassinated, was this thing called the military-industrial complex, and they are so powerful and so wealthy right now that they could have their own army, I mean, they have their own weaponry because they design and they build it themselves, but they could also have their own mercenaries. And I feel that there is something to what you're referring to, the My Lab, which is the military abductions. I think it's a small percentage of that, compared to the other abductions, but I think it's still a relevant phenomenon.
So I find it interesting because I wasn't aware of this, and that's why I love doing this. I learn so much all the time, but I was aware that Eisenhower was the one that signed the bill with the aliens as far as you can have so many abductions, so on and so forth, so long as we get this technology that we need. And so for him to come back and warn us about things makes it seem like he's privy to this knowledge. He knows what's going on, so he's trying to give us the heads up. Did he do this while he was in office, or was this after?
Actually, what happened was there, from what I understand, there was an entity that contacted Eisenhower, and they were their initial prerequisite for meeting was that we would do away with our nuclear arms. Well, Eisenhower thought that that was a Russian ruse, so he did not meet those individuals. There was another entity that contacted him, and they met at Holloman Air Force Base. And as you mentioned, they were represented by the Greys. The Greys are really, they're not a race. They are an advanced android type, and they follow whatever the master is. And that's why there's such confusion as to if they're good or they're bad. They're neither. They follow the orders of their masters. So they are a slave race type of android. But anyway, they showed up, and they obviously had the instructions from their masters on what was going to be the negotiation points. One of them was what you mentioned, abduction. And not only did they mention abduction, but that they said that there would be no harm done to the humans, and they also wanted to abduct livestock and experiment on it. Hearing that, Eisenhower and the government left that negotiation, but what remained was our military contractors, and they made the deals with these guys, not our government, and that's why we are in the situation we are at right now.
Wow. Yeah, and isn't it supposedly about to expire? Like, I don't know, it's weird. Since COVID happened, not only has the paranormal kicked up, but UFO sightings have. And even shortly before that, there was, again, the sweep of, like you said, cattle mutilations and such. It just
Right.
kind of makes one wonder, like, is shit about to hit the fan? It seems like stuff is getting pretty serious. I'm trying not to get scared. I'm trying to be tough, but it makes me wonder.
I don't think anything is going to happen beyond what has been happening now. As I mentioned, this planet is critical to the development of the universe spiritually, and it's being protected in that manner, or at least trying to be protected in that manner. But there is one key point that I make in the novel, and that we are still in a spiritual war. And if you think about it, if we were to ascend, and we were to ascend to the next levels, right? And if there is indeed a war going on in the other dimensions between good and evil, essentially, we would eventually, our spirits would eventually join ranks with the good, and that increases the chances of success against the evil. So what do you think the evil people are trying to do to make sure that we don't ascend. They make sure that there's a lot of war going on around here, a lot of violence, a lot of um, really deviant behavior, and as long as we continue with that and make things even worse, it benefits the what I call the interdimensionals that represent the evil, because it keeps the ranks of the good guys down, and that's why, and that's what's behind that spiritual war that we are in.
I have a lot of questions to go with that, but Robin in the chat room was wondering, when Tesla was building his inventions, he was getting messages from Mars. Um, I have heard things that he was telecommunicating or receiving, rapid fire information, and being able to do these certain things that nobody was privy to. Is it true those were aliens, or was this, guides? What are your thoughts on that?
All right, so first of all, Tesla believed in meditation. So the common thread here is meditation. Einstein meditated a lot. He would meditate for hours. Other people that got some very good ideas, either as artists or as musicians and stuff, meditated. And when you meditate, you make contact with that spiritual realm, and in that spiritual realm could be all kinds of entities that you could connect with. If I guess it would have to be that they would have to want to connect with you, and second, you have to have the ability to be able to get to that level. So I feel that what she refers to is is true, that and Tesla does say that he got his information while he would meditate.
It's interesting, and you had brought up nuclear weapons, and I see Mars and this fissure on it, and all this different stuff going on, even radiation being picked up. We could have originally been Martians. This could have been a nuclear explosion or something from space that during this war, I don't know, I feel like there was something nuclear that happened there, and that nuclear stuff has ended the human cycle, or basically almost brought it to an end several times. I think this is not the first time we've had this information or this technology, and like you said, we used it for not good. Like, it could have been used for energy and other things that are peaceful, but we decided to use it as the almighty weapon on Earth.
Yeah, I think there are some shows on ancient aliens that indicate that there's evidence of a nuclear detonation in ancient India, by way of seeing vitrification, which is the process of extreme heat applied to either sand or it turns into glass. So, and the other thing is that I think it's the Mahabharata, which is a Hindu ancient text, has some text in there that describes someone describing seeing a mushroom bomb. And interestingly enough, Oppenheimer, who was originally with the Nazis, quoted that very text when we detonated it at White Sands for the first time. And that this goes, obviously connects with the belief that the Nazis and Hitler were very much influenced by the ancient Hindu texts as far as understanding the higher technology and having this fascination with the ancient knowledge of the Vinmanas and things like that. So yeah, the the knowledge of the nuclear energy is probably not something that is only in modern time.
Yeah, I really have to agree with that. Um, and that brings me to another point. Like, this may have been created for peaceful use, like I said, for energy, and even Alfred Nobel, who, that's why we have the Nobel Peace Prize. He created dynamite um, for another reason than war. He thought that it would help us in so many ways, which we used to use it to, when I lived in Arkansas, to, make wells and other things like that. And he didn't make it to be a weapon, it was for something else. But as humans, like, it seems like we have that drive to conquer and overcome and destroy things. And so then dynamite was used for worse things. It's just
I'm
amazing
glad
to
you
me.
mentioned that because that's a key message that I have in the book, um, and it kind of ties everything together. Um, and as Bob Dean mentioned, to the higher entities in the universe, and there are many, we are seen as barbaric, we're seen as violent, we're seen as spiritually corrupt, and having a irrational obsession with possessions. And when you put that all together and you see that we have nuclear technology, something doesn't work. So why is it that we are like that? It goes back to understanding what really original sin is. Our original sin is our DNA, and the DNA makes us the way we are. Um, the worst part of it is that we're racist and genocidal. It's a natural tendency, unfortunately. And you put all that together, and that's what makes us the most dangerous species in the universe to the extraterrestrials, because we're also intelligent. So the disclosure paradox, the essence of the disclosure paradox, is that um, because of our danger to the rest of the universe, um, we're not allowed to have their technology. They don't want contact with us. If we were to have contact with them, there would be a transfer of technology. And as you mentioned, what do we use technology for? The only use we have for technology, because of the way we are, is to hurt ourselves. And if we were to have contact with other races that looked different than us, that also had different beliefs than us, what do you think would happen to them if we had their technology? We weaponize it and we use it against them. And that is why we're not going to have contact until we actually change fundamentally the way we are. And that's the essence of my novel.
Do you think there are, like, a select few, like when people say we, I'm like, I'm not on that boat, but do you think there is a select few that do understand, the way it's supposed to be, but we're few and the others are many? Is there, I don't know, I often wonder, is there any hope for us? But I think there are people, like you said, Tesla and Einstein and other people like that did have contact because I think they had that certain knowledge. I don't know if it was from a previous life and so they're just, these mega minds, or was it something else? Like an anomaly in
Well,
their genetics, or
I think they got that information because they were probably pure of heart, and the entities probably took it took a chance in thinking that it would assist us in our development. Um, getting back to our relationship with the rest of the universe, um, a major event that happened that told them pretty much how we were and how corrupt we were was really when they sent their probe to Earth a long time ago. And this is where I also have it in a novel where is my interpretation and really others' interpretations of Jesus, where Mary was artificially inseminated. If you look at the technology, the baby, because the male part was probably of another world, looked different, which is why they were always be not allowed to go into the lodging, and they were sent to the back of a stable, and then they scurried off and they hid him for years because of his appearance. And what they did is they took him to India to learn under Buddha. Buddha obviously was 600 BC, but they learned under the Buddhists, and that's how the entity Jesus got his belief system, by learning Buddhism, because the essence of Christianity really is similar to Buddhism if you think about it. And when he returned, everyone knew that he was different again, and they focused on him. And because he was different, they really treated him terribly, and they put him to death. So I keep telling the Christians that, look, he's not coming back. They're not going to make the same mistake again until we change. And they kind of shrug it off, but that's really what's going on, and that essentially was a statement by our civilization, even though it was 2,000 years ago, of how corrupt we were, and it hasn't changed really. Technology has changed, but our essence of who we are has not changed.
It seems like if we have changed, like I feel like we've stepped backwards instead of evolving like we were. I feel like we've been taken aback, and I don't see why. I don't understand it. And common sense used to be a really big thing, and it's just a flower that doesn't grow in everybody's garden, and it's just really hard to have people accepting this. And you've mentioned Ancient Aliens quite a few times. I really love that show, and I feel like this is a way for our government to, slowly put this out to people so they can get the ideal or wrap their minds around it, because this is something that's really happening. Do you think this is a way for them to kind of open up disclosure? I even hate using that word, but do you think they're trying to prime the pump for us to accept what is happening?
I'll tell you, the best thing that happened to the government was the internet, because the internet allowed all kinds of information out there. And the one thing that the either government or the military-industrial complex likes, they like to have as much information out there because it confuses the public. If you look at, for instance, X-Files, X-Files has a lot of truth in it, but there's a lot of crazy stuff, but it's all presented in the same manner. And so people that know the facts from the fables, they get it. But most of the people that watch that, most of the general public are not as informed as, someone like you or I. So they'll take everything as being fable, right? And that's what our intelligence and anyone that deals with sensitive information, they like to see more and more information distributed and released, because first of all, they won't have any comment on it, and second, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so if you can, the common individual will not be able to understand or define which is the misinformation, which is the hoax, and which is truth. And as long as that's going on, as long as there's a lot of hoaxes out there and a lot of misinformation, and probably some of it is planted by operatives, they're okay with it.
So we're about to go to our first musical break. So I was wondering if you could direct our listeners on where to find your book, or where to find information on you, or ways to contact you in the future for questions or whatnot.
Okay. There's a couple of ways. First of all, I have a website which is called www.thedisclosureparadox.com, all one word. And there people can go in without paying a dime and read excerpts from every chapter. They could read reviews from people, and they could read descriptions of characters and the table of contents. So there's a lot there that they could go through. If they like that, they could join a group that I have on Facebook called The Disclosure Paradox, a science fiction novel, and that's open to anyone. And the book is available on Amazon.com through paperback, and if people have an e-reader, on Kindle. So those are the ways.
Very awesome. I'm super excited you're here and getting into this stuff. Like you said, it's a rabbit hole. Like, you can go forever and talk about this. But on this break, we have King Cinnamon, who's from Biafra, Nigeria, with Ala Imo Ederella. We also have Hosni Bronx, who is originally from Jamaica, but he also lives in the Bronx of New York, and he's going to be singing Dance as a Lion. Again, we have King Cinnamon with Fantastic. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this musical break.
We swap on the beat.
Kanyi kele Chineke makwa n'ala Imo bụ ndị njem ọnụ. Kanyi kele onye nwụwa ịmakwa n'ala Imo bụ ndị njem ọnụ. Alimo, Alime Kerelo, Alimo, Alime Kerelo, Alimo State, Alime Kerelo, Alimo, Alime Kerelo, Alimo State, Alime Kerelo, Alimo, Alime Kerelo, Democracy Kerelo, Ndime Kerelo, Alimo, Alime Kerelo, Alimo, Alime Kerelo, Alimo State, Alime Kerelo, Alimo, Alime Kerelo, Democracy Kerelo. Ndime Meriela, Elegamo, making head ya. Ebere marama, Obana marama, First Lady marama, Her Excellency, Emeka Edio Hama, Emeka Edio Hama, Omenka Unanya Edio Hama, Omenka Unanya Wa, Emeka, Meki Modima, Emeka, Meki Modima. Emeka puta no boy, oh yeah. Umu wa wulelu, Emeka puta no boy. Welcome adima. Umu we me wempoto. Emeka meki modima. Emeka meki modima. Ndem jejemba, mwan jejemba. Ndem jemano, Deputy Governor Imo State Chilike. Gerard Ronna Karaka, Wokoma Dima, Porabo, Deputy Governor Wile Deregima, Alukuta Deregima, Alimo State Deregima, Ala Nigeria Maragima, Onya Jemonu, Stanley Wamuche Karaka, Stanley Onya Babamba, President Good Life Foundation Shirike, President General, Senate Group of Companies, President General, Financial Matter Karaka, Alo Were Deregima, Alambise Deregima, Alimo State Deregima, Ala Nigeria Maragima, Onya Jemonu, Ebe Arabido Hotels, ABC Transport Karaka, Alo were Dirigima, Alambise Dirigima, Alimo State Dirigima, Ala Nigeria Maragima, Uchonya go chande, Honorable Wokomadima, Onye Horo Yakeleli Yao, Mawugi, Ginando Tudio, Mawunule, Njigari Nala, Imo State, yo, Mawugi, Ginando Tudio, Mawunule, Minigari Zonala, Imo State, Alo were Dirigima, Alo were Dirigima, Alimo State Dirigima, Ala Nigeria Maragima, the German, Orange Drugs Limited, Jisa Anthony Ifani Chubundu Bisesena Ishirike, Ikenga Chele, pride of his people, most outstanding one, Okoma Marama, Iborabo. Alo were Dirigima, Alijato Dirigima, Alimo State Dirigima, Ala Nigeria Maragima, Honorable Jobagu Shirike, Honorable Bina Shirike, Jera Labosa Shirike, Tochuko Kereke Shirike, Okahu Be Shirike, Intina Benina Shirike, Onyamana Construction, Wokomadema Ikaraka, Onya Shiwole Heborani. Mu imarama o wokoma de jemba o wokoma de ma ikaraka wis popule ibo felamo onyoma na pito akana kompa ikaraka eziwa mama Mr. Ludiriwa wokoma de jemba CEO Elizabeth Ventures ikaraka democracy merielo ndi me merielo Merielo, Ndime Merielo, Alime Gerelo. Thank God I'm from Imo State. Emeka has come to rejuvenate. Imo State, make you jubilate, make you celebrate. Emeka Shikwen say, this one no be said them say. Emeka has come to rejuvenate. Imo State, celebrate, make you jubilate. Ala mekele His Excellency Achikudenwa. Mekele kwa His Excellency Dr. Hakim. Yemaka Right Honorable PDK. Mekele kwa Right Honorable Jones Oyereri. Ala mekele Senator Onyebuchi Mr. Empowerment. Mekele kwa Right Honorable Emeka Chinedu. Umo mimo lowali bia mezena limo. Alima Adelama.
Cliffito.
Why Babylon? music come from Jah. Dance, dance around this place, Rasta. Dance, dance, it's our chance to unite and chant the word. People in love, people in love, people in love, people in love. Yeah, humanity want to protect humanity. We have to save people from poverty. We don't want your frustration. We don't want your ambush, Babylon.
We swap on the beat.
She like my water bam bam. King cinnamon. Oh shit, baddest. Take your bam bam anywhere you day. Throw your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's ball, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Take your bam bam anywhere you day. Throw your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's ball, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Gucci Prada, baby, gather something. Come on closer, baby, gather 19. I know you better, but I am the king. Your backside bigger than Bombay. Baby girl, bronco-tum. I like the way you whine your bronco-tum. Baby girl, bronco-tum. I like the way you whine your bronco-tum. Jamaica, Ghana, shout out to the ladies in Asia, Nigeria, South Africa. Say me love you. Please me, baby. Yeah. Turn up from you. Take your bam bam anywhere you day. Throw your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Take your bam bam anywhere you day. Throw your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Give me love. We want you, we love you. Give me love. Oh, give me love. Hey, please me, baby. Oh. Yeah, turn up from you. Yeah, take your bam bam anywhere you day. Throw your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Shake your bam bam anywhere you day. Throw your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic.
We swap on the mix. Lift it all.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us tonight on We Are Maradox Medias Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we have Paul Vecchiet on, and he is an author of The Disclosure Paradox. Welcome back, Paul, and thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight and educating us and informing us.
Hi. I enjoyed the reggae music.
Oh, thank you. I like it too. One of our listeners from Australia, he's like, "Man, I'm sorry I came back late. I muted the music." I'm like, "How could you?"
Hmm.
It was very
Yep.
nice. Hosni Bronx actually has a couple members from, oh my goodness, I cannot believe I'm drawing a blank right now. Not Jimi Hendrix, Bob Marley. Original
Uh-huh.
members of Bob Marley's band. So there's a lot of similarities there.
Oh yeah.
So over the break, I had sent you some pictures that I got from my very own backyard. It's pretty intriguing. Like I said, I didn't see this with my naked eye. I didn't have my glasses on, so my distance vision is not that good. But I was taking pictures with a Nikon camera, and when I zoomed in to check out the anomalies or whatnot, as far as shaking or whatnot, like getting the clearest picture, I see these UFOs. Um, I don't know. And you had started to say something to me, but I just sent another one where it shows the actual individual crafts. They first showed up as lights on the
Hmm.
cloud, and then they turned into actual crafts that were tucked into the clouds. And then again, before they left, became little orbs of light again, and then they were gone.
Yeah. I think where you are, if you look at uh, data on sightings, your area is very active with sightings, and I think a lot of it has to do with proximity to White Sands. Dulce's over there, and I think there are some places in Colorado that are involved with NORAD and stuff. So um, that's quite an area over there.
Yeah, and when I was telling people about this, which, a lot of times isn't a good idea, but I'm associated with a bunch of people in the paranormal, which is other than normal, but uh, people would pipe up and say, "Oh, well, what about swamp gas? And what about this? And what about that?" And I'm like, that is
Jeez.
totally not what it was. I live nowhere near a swamp. I'm here in Bayfield, Colorado. I don't know. There's so much activity out here, even like I said, 20 feet away from me, or even 10 feet back here where my kids had their experience. Like, it is very prevalent. Do you think even though I'm not really that close to a base or whatnot, do you think this is just an area that is very highly noted for aliens coming, or why are they
Yeah.
drawn here?
Okay. So there is a researcher. His name is Gary David. He's a good Facebook friend of mine. He's written a lot of nonfiction books, research, and he works in that area. What he does is he connects the ancient Hopi and Navajo and Apache um, rites and their customs to what he says are related to ancient alien, I guess, entities, and I think it continues to this day. Are you near a lot of Indian reservations too?
Yeah, it's intriguing. Different things that have been trying to be built recently, one of them being what we call the Bridge to Nowhere. But there was a lot of Indian artifacts found there, a lot of places in Durango, which, when originally established, was referred to as Animas City, was Ute land, Ute Indian land.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is so much different activity, even in Cortez, which is really in the southwest corner of Colorado, where I had grown up from fourth grade to graduating. Then I joined the military and went back, not wanting to be with my dad before he passed away. But there's so much activity as far as Skinwalker, alien. People talk about in McKelmo Canyon seeing these different colored orbs just flying back and forth through these certain places. It just seems so active on so many different levels.
Oh yeah. Gary did an entire book about taking the constellation of Orion and superimposing it on an area over there. And sure enough, all of the sacred sites in that area correlate perfectly to the constellation Orion, which is really fascinating stuff.
Well, it's intriguing as well. Like they talk about the Anasazi and
Right.
how they just kind of disappeared off the map. A lot of stories say perhaps they were taken by aliens. We have the Kachina dolls, which you look at those are definitely alien type people. Like they're wearing these certain face masks to filter the air or whatever's
Sure.
going on. But yeah, some people say they disappeared. Some people say they went south and became the Puebloans. But it's hard to say what really did happen because there was a lot of stuff left behind. And like I said, it's like they kind of disappeared off the face of the earth.
I'll have to ask Gary about that. I'll remember to ask him what he thinks about the Anastasia. He's a good guy.
I wrote it down on my Palm Pilot, which is actually my hand, to look him up and actually try to have him on the show too, because I just love to hear everybody's experiences and perspectives. It's just really intriguing to me. But getting back to your book, I mean, for me, when I was reading this cheat sheet, I felt like this was a real-to-life thing, even though it said fictional novel. To me, it felt real. And when you said this is basically like a biography, but written as such, is that to pull people in? Because a lot of times people, like you said, are bored by biographies and different things like that, and they'd rather read a fictional novel.
Yeah, and the individuals that the characters are based on all are real people, but I don't use their real names to protect them too. So I thought that it would not be successful as a memoir. First of all, you're not going to read a memoir from a nobody, and second, you're not going to be interested in a memoir that covers a decade, where things happen, but really nothing exciting. It's just oddities, and those oddities happen to a lot of people too, not just to myself. But when you put all of that together, when you put all of the characters that I met together, and then my past experiences growing up, it presented for a good basis for a novel with a very exciting plot.
So when I was reading my cheat sheet and I saw, there's a mutation in your DNA or your genetics, and that really rang with me because I did get a DNA test. I don't want to do a regular one. I don't want to be on a list, but it was for cancer because my grandmother had it when my mom was killed by a drunk driver, and they did the autopsy. They found cancer in her as well. So I was worried about it, and stress can make things manifest. So I'm like, I want to get this done to see what's going on. That way I can worry about it more or not. And no red flags. Everything came back fine, except for they said, there is a genetic anomaly. We're not quite sure what it is yet, but we'll get back to you when we find out what it is. And I'm like, oh, great. I've always called myself a mutant. My sister just recently said, we're hybrids, right? And I'm like, yeah, I know I'm weird. I know I'm different. And I don't collude with a lot of people. I've had this feeling of not belonging. Did you have that throughout your life where you felt like I don't belong and you're trying to find your niche in the world?
No, I didn't have that struggle. I guess it transcended that. I know that there's a lot of people that are call themselves hybrids and feel that this is not their planet, not their home. They don't feel at all like they belong here. And I understand that. There's a couple people like that that appear in my novel.
It's really mind-blowing, and I could relate with a certain female character in your thing where she is able to do these power shocks, or even like, it reminds me of D&D, using like the lightning bolt spell, or different things like that. You know, I've been to a point of anger where I wave my hand and 2 feet away this light bulb just shatters because
Wow.
of the power of the energy, I guess, coming off of me. To say the least, like, that's when the argument ended. We were both like, what the hell just happened? And we quit arguing, you know, because we don't know if somebody's head's going to explode next or whatnot. But it was pretty intriguing, and that was the first time I'd ever experienced that. I've always, you know, like I said, witnessed the paranormal, had different things about me that were different, but that for me was just like an eye opener. And my sister was telling me she experiments with different things. I don't know if you know about, what is it called? I don't know if it's DMA or something like that. But she was talking about how these little bumps will raise up on her skin, and she said it kind of reminds her of nipples. But not only has she experienced that several times, DMT, I think is what it's called. Somebody that was there, she's like, I want you to look at this. Like, do you see what I'm seeing right now? And they actually saw it too. And she said she feels this electricity through her body, and she feels like people need to go away from where she's at because she's not sure what's going to happen, and she doesn't want to hurt anybody. But it's pretty intriguing to me, this individual, not just the woman who has this ability, but the male figure, which I believe is you. Did you have some sort of genetic anomaly in your DNA strand, or where did that come from?
Me? No, I don't think I have anything odd. But one thing that happened to me after I wrote the 31 pages of outline on this novel in one weekend. The next day, a mark on my arm appeared, and it's a triangle with a circle superimposed on it, and it looks like a burn mark.
Wow.
And yeah, and some individuals tell me, a psychic woman has told me that what it likely is, since I wasn't abducted, is an activation in my DNA where once I got to this point where I'm supposed to be at, it finally showed up on my arm as a sign of acceptance or whatever. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
And I've heard of that from different people. One of our regulars in the chat room, Nikki, she has talked about being abducted, and part of your book was this female that was talking about her kids being taken from her. And
Yes.
Nikki has her own kids, but she's got, I think she said, like 9 or 10 kids that this alien race has taken from her. And it's giving me chills right now just thinking about it. Like, I could not imagine that happening with my kids. I'd rather you, like, take my life. But there's so many people that talk about that and about the triangle. And it's intriguing to me when I have people on the show. Shortly after I had somebody on talking about aliens, I received some bruises. It was kind of triangular, but it was more like the thumb and the 2 fingers on the other side. Like somebody had grabbed me hard because I wasn't going. And I bruised really easily. And I showed this on the after party of these weird bruises on my arm. And it was on both sides. Like these aliens had forcefully taken me because I wasn't going, I guess. I have no recollection of it except for having the marks. So you're saying the marks that you got, you felt like it was some sort of acceptance?
Yes. It was kind of like, okay, so, you did your, your outline. And by the way, no one writes a 31-page outline in a weekend. And does
Right.
it without error or editing or something like that. So I felt that I had some outside help in putting that together. I'm certain of it, and I think the triangle is essentially a sign that I completed that step, and that I'm in the right direction.
So, did you have experiences with aliens, UFO, AUPs, or UAPs, or whatever, UAFs? I don't even know what they're calling it anymore. I'm so used to UFOs. I cannot wrap my mind around this new thing that they're using. But did you have experiences before you joined the Air Force?
Not not before I joined the Air Force, at least not that I know of. Only and the only experience involved with the Air Force is what I document, which is finding the secret basement. But over here in West Virginia, I had observed some anomalies in the sky, and I know one that shows up a lot is I think it appears to be a mothership because it looks like a star when it's in the sky, but if you take the binoculars to it, it has green and red and yellow highlights, and it also appears to be vibrating. And because I'm looking through the binoculars and I keep them still, and the darn thing is just vibrating. And I thought, oh wow, that's really something. And I showed it to my wife, and she pretty much agreed with me on that. And then I hear from other people that they saw it as far away as Ohio, so it must be pretty huge to show up in the sky like that. And then just sitting outside at night. One night I saw right above us 4 very bright flashes in close proximity to each other, and I don't know what it was, but it certainly wasn't anything of Earth, and it wasn't a heavenly body. It wasn't like a comet or an asteroid or I mean what do you call that? A meteorite. It was something that looked like it had 4 explosions in various places, or it could have been 4 vehicles that had some sort of propulsion or explosion that made that sight. But that was probably one of the most interesting things that I saw recently here.
Yeah, and I've actually seen on security during, I guess it was a snowstorm coming in, and I've been here in Colorado for a long time, and this is the first time, like you said, it was a flash of light that illuminated the whole area. And I think I recorded it at one point or took pictures or something, and I'm talking to other people in Colorado and other places, but mostly in the Durango, Colorado area, and they're seeing the same thing. You don't see a lightning streak, you don't see anything. It's just this flash of light that illuminates, and it's so quiet. It's like piercing quiet. And people are like, oh, that's just the static from the snow trying to fall, so on and so forth. But I've been here for years. I know what a snowstorm looks like. I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Right.
It was so mind-blowing and intriguing. And for somebody else to say, yeah, I saw that too, like, what the heck is that? And we're trying to figure it out, and they're saying, well, maybe it's power lines, and it blew, and so that's why it's doing that. But this person is over, across the mountain in this certain valley. There's no way that it would be happening there either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really I get frustrated with people that try and offer an explanation to agree with their bias about not believing in the stuff, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty aggravating for sure, but you can't fix stupid and you can't lead a horse to water and make it drink. People have to
Right.
learn their own lessons, and I don't know, I think a big part of us being here and being so open-minded and able to accept things and to propel ourselves as human beings or spirit beings or whatnot, I kind of imagine us like, that person on the Men in Black where there's a little alien driving us around. We often tease our son about having an ant driving him around because an ant crawled into his eye and then we never found it again. It was pretty weird. And he really hates when we refer to that, but it does remind me of that. Like, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and that's the best way, I think, to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the key to life? I think finding happiness and finding the truth and answers. And like you said, Christ, like you said, Buddhism and Christianity really do kind of collude. And I think a lot
Yeah.
of religions have a little portion of the answer. If we were to not have egos and come together, we can actually get somewhere. But everybody's busy fighting, and I'm better than you, and you're better than whoever. Like, I don't know. We just all need to come together, work together, and get past this.
The one issue that, I try to stay away from politics, but this is an issue that seems to be dividing ourselves. Is is a thing about abortion, and if people really understood our spirituality, we can probably get to the bottom of having a definition of what is a human being and when does life begin. Because, according to the people that are religious, if you're using um, their idea of what a human being is, the human being is special because we have a soul or a spirit. So for that to be um, working, we link the human body links with the spirit through our brain and it's a gland called the pineal gland. So if that's the case, then doesn't it make sense that the fetus is not a human being until the brain is fully developed to accept the spirit? And if that's the case, then that is what we should pinpoint as the point in time where the fetus becomes human. That's one thing that where we can use spiritual science to help us evolve and to get, start using actual knowledge and facts to settle these arguments that seem to be just coming back at us all the time. It's the same story all the time that they keep hammering with, but there's more to what they're saying, and they don't even use their own belief system to put together the facts. That's what bothers me.
Yeah, I don't know. Religion has helped me a lot in my life. There's times when I needed help, I needed that fellowship, so on and so forth. But, it's the people that are there that are worse than everybody else, but they're looking down their noses at everyone. But I'm more of a spiritual person than I am religious because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my church is where I'm at, or when I go outside, or, the place around me where I can really feel in touch with the higher being, not going to a place to look good in front of everybody and be looked down upon, even
Mm-hmm.
though I feel like I'm more awakened than they are, but they feel like they're better than me for some apparent reason. But I think it's important for people to understand that you don't have to be a part of a fellowship or a church. Like, some people do need that. And I think
Yeah.
different religions, just like music, different music is different medicine for different people. And I think it is important at certain times throughout your life when you feel like you have nothing left and you go back to try to re-up or whatever the term may be, and then continue on your path. But I don't know. Jesus Christ to me was amazing. I call him my big brother. I love my big brother. He's amazing. And I try to strive to be like him. Even, I hate to say it because I don't want to be blasphemous or whatnot, but even before God, like, Jesus Christ to me is who I strive to be like him, and to love unconditionally. And when people look at, gay partnerships and these different things, like, there is love there, and that's what's important, to find happiness, to find love, no matter where it may be, no matter who accepts it. It really doesn't matter what somebody else thinks. I think it's all up to you to find your own happiness and your own path. I think that is really the key to life.
Agree. The one thing that why I am so emphatic about our spirituality is that one out of body experience. If you look at what is written in the Bible, they say that God is within us and God is all around us, and that came to reality when I had that out of body experience where I first started to see a indigo glow, and as I got closer, it was essentially like a massive activity of flashing lights, millions and millions and millions of flashing lights going randomly, all indigo, and like a beehive would be, just all that kind of activity. And as I got closer, there was a feeling of euphoria. And what that was what they call the source energy. And the source energy really is, what they call God, but what it is all of the spirits between sentient lives in the universe converge in this place as energies, and they combine, and it forms one consciousness. And when you have all of those energies in one mass like that, that's where you have an enormous amount of power. And if you consider the science of noetics, which is the science of thought, or the power of thought, and if you consider each spirit having that power, you combine it with all the other spirits, and you multiply it millions and billions of times. That's why the source energy is so powerful. So if you take one thought and you multiply it in a billion times, imagine how powerful that thought would be. And that's what is the source energy, and that's what I found out on that out-of-body experience.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that do the OBE thing, and I'm afraid of it because I've had things after me my whole life that want to take me over. So I'm afraid if I do this out-of-body experience, by the time I get back, somebody's going to check into my room, you know what I mean? And I can't get back in. Like, I'm going to be lost forever. But I have accidentally had a couple out-of-body experiences. The first one I recall was when I was in MRP, the Marine Rehabilitation Platoon, and I generally wouldn't take naps, but this day I was so tired. I'm going to take a nap on this rack right here by the head. And I heard my staff sergeant yell for us to line up for chow, and I can open my eyes, I can see the girls running past me, but I cannot move, and I fought so hard to move. Nothing could break me free. A lot of people say if you relax at that point, then you can break free of it, and I did at one point just let go and then try again, and I was able to get up. But I was sore for over a week. Like, I had a really hardcore workout. Second time, I was watching my friend's house. She went to California. Her husband went to the prison out there. I can't remember what it's called, but I'm watching their house in the middle of nowhere, and it's a little trailer, and all of a sudden I hear this scratch noise, and they had this sort of wallpaper that was reminded me of corduroy pants. Um, it was rigid, and I look over, and the fly swatter and the keys are swinging back and forth like somebody had hit it. And then all of a sudden the keys fall off, and the fly swatter finally starts to slow down. I get chest pains. I fall asleep, and all of a sudden I'm on the floor on all fours, and I'm trying to crawl around. I can't. And then I turn around and I see my body on the couch. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just died. I had a heart attack. Nobody's going to find me for days. And so I was trying to get back to my body, because I'm thinking if I get back to my body and get in it, like, I'll be alive again. And I did. I got back in, and then all of a sudden I sat up, breathed deep, and I was like, oh my God, like, that was so scary. I didn't go very far, but I think the reason I had difficulties crawling around is because I was trying to manipulate my physical body, which was on the couch, instead of spiritually doing it. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't want to do it intentionally because I'm afraid, like I said, but I know people that can go clear across the world and help other people astrally or out of
Yeah,
body.
I didn't. Neither of my out of body experiences were intentional. It just happened while I was in meditation, and I haven't had anything like that in a while. The one about the indigo lights, that was probably about, I think, 2 years ago, and I haven't had anything since.
And people talk about different colored orbs. Some are good, some are bad. People are saying
Hmm.
the one I saw, good thing you didn't go out there because that's not a good one. But I've heard green is like healing, and different colors for different reasons. Have you looked up what indigo might mean?
Well, I think indigo is the color of our third eye chakra, according to you know that the chakra science, and I think indigo is very strong. If you have the indigo aura, you're very strong spiritually. So that kind of makes sense.
It was funny. I believe auras exist. I've seen them even for people who have passed. I saw my Uncle Bill's aura behind my sister when we were talking. She's my cousin, but she's my sister because, just the way my life turned out. But I saw him behind her, and he kept trying to float up, and then he'd come back down, start trying to float up, come back down. I'm like, sister, I'm not like trying to ignore what you're saying, but I keep seeing your dad behind you floating up and trying to reattach to you, like he's trying to tell you something. It's just amazing, like the energy we have, especially in the afterlife. A lot of people don't believe in orbs as far as spiritually. I know the difference between a spiritual orb and the alien orbs I saw. Those are totally different. And most of them you do capture in photo, but I've seen them with my naked eye as well. It's an energy, and it's easiest to move in a ball of energy. And then if you want to manifest, you can. But it's pretty intriguing.
Oh yeah, indeed. We have my wife and I have a lot of experiences with the afterlife, and there 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 is energy expended when the spirits come to our level, our dimension. And that's why they're kind of, they're not rare, but they're not as frequent as people may want them to be. So they, because they have energy, and they have to use it to transfer to this level from their level. So that's probably why it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, and a lot of people aren't awakened enough, I think, to see this. And I don't know why some of us encounter it all throughout our lives, and some of us get a glimpse. I had a girl contact me. I've been doing Four Corners Paranormal since 2012, and She's like, I've never seen a ghost. I believe it exists, but I've never experienced it. And I'm like, just be open-minded. Even people you're walking past on the street could be, ghosts. And on our note, like, even alien. But I told her, just be open-minded, be acceptful of it, and, it might eventually happen. A month later, she said she went to pick up her kid from daycare, and there was this old lady in the backyard with the kids. And she went in and talked to the daycare lady and said, hey, it's really cool, you got some help going on. Is that your grandma? And she's like, I'm here by myself. What are you talking about? And she said, I saw an old lady back there with the kids. And then she showed her the picture of her grandma, and that was the lady. So that was pretty intriguing. And like you were saying before, like, we die, we go to heaven, we go to hell. But I think we don't have individual judgment days. I think there is a judgment day. And when that happens, we're all going to be cycled through, and we'll go where we're meant to go. But in the meantime, we have free agency, so we're allowed to come help our loved ones or look over them, be guides, or some people call them angels or whatnot. It's pretty intriguing how energy does exist. It never goes away.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yep.
So continue on with your book and the characters in there. These are actual people that you were involved with that did have these certain experiences. Did you guys just kind of have a camaraderie up, like, within yourselves? You knew what was going on, and other people were kind of oblivious to it?
Well, going down the characters list, Mary Ellen Velarde, who is a Hickory Apache woman, and I make her a Hickory Apache woman because of the Dulce scenario. She's really made up of a few of the psychic women that have been influential in my life in this journey. So in fact, one very recently, she got a transmission from an unknown entity explaining that there was concern about what was happening on the planet, that things are in a dangerous condition for the planet, and that they will assist when the time is ready. But they didn't tell her who they were, and that's not exactly the words that they had, but she got a lot of good information on a question and answer session with them about this. So it's good that there's still activity from the people that I base my characters on. They're still very active. And Stoneburner, who is Mary Ellen Velarde's elder mentor, is also based on a woman, in fact, and is based on my spiritual mentor, who was the one that was getting all of the information from the Watchers and giving them to me. Deborah Swift is really based on a woman that I know, but she's not an Air Force security policeman like Deborah Swift is, but she's very active as an activist for gay rights, and so I kind of took her character and put it into Deborah. Kaya Jorgensen is an autistic woman who has an ability to paint portraits. And it's based on a real woman that will be named nameless right now because she had been getting harassment from the government, and so she stopped anything that had to do with her involvement with UFOs and ETs. Gerald McGeorge, who's a colonel in the U.S. Army, is based on a real colonel that was a friend of mine. And revealed to me a lot of stuff that was happening to him spiritually, and he thought he was going nuts. So I have his activity in there. Katrina Herman is the psychokinetic that you mentioned before, based on a real person. And in fact, I am writing a second novel all about her, which is a prequel to this novel. And she's working with me on that. Robert Ladd is a former U.S. Army Ranger and a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan, and he's made up of 2 or 3 characters, people that I know that were Iraqi vets and Afghanistan vets that work with me right now, that conveyed some stories that I used to make him up. He suffers from PTSD. Tara Everly is a senior Air Force, a senior airman in the Air Force, and she was stationed in Niles. She was a radar specialist, and that's based on a very real person that also wishes to be anonymous. And there's finally Trevor Hugo, who is a hybrid, and he's involved at the end of the novel, and again, based on a real person.
So do you think eventually, I don't know, I had a grandpa that was in the Air Force. He kept a lot of stuff secret until he got to a certain age, and to the point he didn't care anymore. You know, I'm not supposed to say this, but I want to tell you the story anyways. And it was so amazing, like the different things that we do go through in the military that we're not allowed to talk about no matter what. And even to try to do it at home in person, you think you're safe, but then at the same time, like, is the house bugged? Are you bugged? Are you chipped? Like, what's going on? But it's intriguing how for the longest time it seemed like the military was hardcore like that. Like, we won't just kill you. We'll kill your family first, and then we'll kill you. There's so many threats to keep this stuff secret, and it seems like a lot of that doesn't happen anymore, or instead of being threatened, you're just followed and then killed. They don't do the precursor anymore. And like you said, it's, I think, a different branch of government, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It's kind of scary.
I think because there are so many people that have these experiences, I think they've stopped with suppressing it. And again, they're okay with people saying things because a lot of people won't believe it anyway. And really, they're looking at the risk. What is the risk if this person says something anyway? If it's one person, it really isn't that big of a deal. But if you're talking about, an entire group of people that will corroborate on information, I think they're more concerned about that kind of thing.
Yeah, after you're out, that doesn't happen a lot. People go their different ways, and they're not in a group anymore. But yeah, it's pretty scary what's out there. So we are about to go to our second musical break. I'm just really blown away by this. So when this story first happens, did you originate with these characters all together, or was it kind of like the way life happens in circles where you're meant to come across each other at certain times, and then you collude as a group?
Yeah, it's all synchronicity. A lot of people don't know each other. It's all a lot of it is the psychic women, and then all of these special people that have either special abilities or knowledge, and I kept. I kept it in my mind, all of these people, and, thinking, that their stories need to be told somehow. They all have a very important message. And fortunately, I was able to put it all together in this novel because, I wrote what I wanted to do as far as the message, and then I just and as I mentioned, the outline came to me so easily. I think there was a lot of help in that. What we have is help from another entity, but at the same time, all of the synchronicity occurring of meeting all these special people, you put that all together, and that kind of puts together the picture of the destiny involved.
Yeah, and when you say that, it reminds me of myself as far as, I've been a story writer, but for the most part, I've been a poet, and I quit doing it for years due to like abusive relationships, and then after that going into the military and being too busy to write, and then all of a sudden I have this line going through my head, and I'm trying to go to sleep, and it just keeps repeating the very first line. So I'm like, okay, I gotta get up, I gotta write this down, and as soon as I write out the first line, which was repeated in my head for hours, the rest of it came, and I don't know what you call a 3-page poem, but it was pretty amazing. It was called Man's Worth, and it was a lot about us as individuals and spirit beings and whatnot. But it's funny how that happens. Is that kind of like what happened to you with your story? Like, did it bug you to the point where I got to write this down, and it was just like you said, nothing. It was out, it was done, and then I had the precursor for this book.
Right. Well, it started out as a blog. The information started out as a blog, and I had a good blog going, and I had some people that were interested in it, and I think I had maybe 7 months of it. I think it lasted about 7 months, and then I needed to find work again, so I stopped it because I was afraid people would look into my data and see things. So I stopped it, but I did keep all of the information that I had in there as Word documents. And then I had a group in Facebook called Spirits and Healing, and there I actually would write down all the things that were happening to me, the dreams, the synchronicities, the people that I would meet, and once again I had a trail of documentation there. And then when I started to get the information from the women that I had a special role, and that there was something about me. After I had the reading from the psychic, where it's called regressive therapy, that was really impactful as far as telling me, okay, you've got all this information, people need to know about it. And that's when I decided. At first, I was thinking of doing a screenplay, and then my wife, kind of convinced me that, screenplays are very difficult, and you're a first timer. Just write a book. So from there on, I was putting together what I wanted in the book for quite a while, and then I just had a weekend by myself. Since I do some travel during business, I go to the Middle East once in a while as part of my job, and I was there for a couple of weeks, and during a weekend I just sat down and did the entire outline, and from there on I did not stray from the outline, and it took me quite a few and versions, but okay.
That was weird. Yeah, you were talking, and then all of a sudden you quit. But I heard it cut out a couple times. I don't know what's going on with that. Paratechnical issues. But we do have to go to our second musical break. We have Hosni Bronx from Jamaica, and he also resides in the Bronx of New York with Free Child and Strong Life. We also have King Cinnamon from Biafra, Nigeria with Rosie. You guys know, we'll be right back after this music break.
yeah, it's Funky on the beat.
Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Cinnamon, cinnamon, do it softly. I said you wine your body, eat the sweetie, sweetie. Make it rock my body, I am feeling horny. Make it touch my body, I am feeling sweetie. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. All my men, they wear out. All my guys, they wear out. Imarama, Imarama, Rosie. Imarama, Imarama, Rosie. All my men, they wear out. All my guys, they wear out. Imarama, Imarama, Rosie. Imarama, Imarama, Rosie. Mukomukeji, go bere muketa. Oya mukomukeji, oya bere muketa. Daddy mu ekon, omo ni pe mukeji. Daddy bere muketa, omo ni fún mi lẹ́yìn. Daddy fisi fisi, omo ni ẹjọ́. Daddy saucy saucy, omo ni ẹjọ́. Daddy kosi kosi, omo ni ẹjọ́. Daddy turn him pussy, omo ni ẹjọ́. Daddy and his baby, them dey for corner. Daddy begin the touch and the girl dey holla. Now daddy begin the open the shirt collar. Now something come out, daddy begin the suck am. Daddy mu ekon, omo ni pe mukeji. Daddy bere muketa, omo ni fún mi lẹ́yìn. Daddy fisi fisi, omo ni ẹjọ́. Daddy saucy saucy, omo ni ẹjọ́ ẹjọ́. All my men they wear out. All my guys they wear out. Imarama, Imarama, Rosie. Imarama, Imarama, Rosie. All my men they wear out. All my guys they wear out. Imarama, Imarama, Rosie. Imarama, Imarama, Rosie. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Cinnamon, cinnamon, do it softly. I said you wine your body, eat the sweetie, sweetie. Shake it, rock my body, I am feeling horny. Shake it, touch my body, I am feeling sweetie. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Kissy, kissy, amani, ejo. Daddy saucy, saucy, amani, ejo. Daddy kosi, kosi, amani, ejo. Daddy kahe kosi, amani, ejo. Daddy count out, amani, ejo. Daddy comfort, daddy consist, amani, ejo. Daddy count 8, daddy 120, amani, ejo. Daddy 18, daddy 240, amani, ejo. Daddy 36, daddy and the baby, them there for corner. Daddy begin the touch and the girl the holla. Daddy begin the open the shirt collar. I come to come, daddy begin the sucker. Daddy move, echo, amani pe mukeji. Daddy bere muketa, amani fún mi lẹ́yìn. Daddy fisi fisi, amani ẹjọ́. Daddy saucy saucy, amani ẹjọ́ ẹjọ́. All my men they wear out. All my guys they wear out. Imarama, 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 Imarama.
Oh yeah, it's Funky on the beat.
Babylon to make you suffer. Babylon to make you suffer. make you suffer. What the desire? Young life. We are ready to fight. Hard life for my people. I don't know why my people live this life. I don't know why my people live this life. I don't know how to fight, 'cause my people suffer. What do you want, Babylon? I don't understand why this world is so strange, strange with my people. I don't know how to fight, but if we are together, it will work. It will work. Babylon no have no heart. 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 My people, you have to survive. Yeah, you must rebuild you and make your own way. You must not give up. The beginning of the revolt will start. We need to follow our true destiny. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't know why my people live this life. I don't know why my people live this life. The obstacle we face, yeah, is Babylon. The world is a good place, yeah, for our freedom. You take everything, you don't breathe anything, yeah, yeah. Young life, all anti-dread. We must believe in a magical, powerful force that unite us, and not just these people stay speechless again. We don't want to talk, no, it's time to fight, yeah. We start talking. Babylon make you suffer. 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 What the desire? Young life. We are ready to fight.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us tonight on We Are Maradox Medias Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we have Paul Vecchiet, and he is the author of The Disclosure Paradox. Welcome back, Paul, and thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight.
Hi again.
Hello, hello. So looking at your notes and such about your book, like you said before, the key is meditation. Tesla, Einstein, different people like this meditated a lot. I even read stories about how Einstein actually got so lost in what he was doing sometimes he'd pee his pants. That's pretty deep. I've never been there, but you know, a lot of people, when you say the word chakra or Reiki or whatever, they're like automatically repelled. If you say chakra or talk about Reiki one more time, I'm out of here. But it is really important, and especially for being a spiritual individual and progressing, to clear your chakras and to be aware of them, and be aware of the energy that we do have within us. What are your thoughts on chakras and Reiki, and the importance of advancing?
Actually, the mention of chakras and Reiki does appear in the novel. There is in fact a Reiki healing that is done by Mary Ellen Velarde, and I think it's unfortunate that people kind of label the notion of the chakras as strictly an Eastern religion. I think there's a lot of truth and proof about the chakras, which are our spiritual centers in our energy, and I think that there's a lot of information out there about it, and to say that that people are repelled by it, I think they're repelled by it because they don't understand it. People are going to be defensive about things, especially when they think that it counters their own personal beliefs, and they almost think like it's competing with their religion, which it's not. It in fact, I guess one problem is that it's being referred to as part of a religion, but it's not. It's a spirit science.
And it really is. I actually had somebody give me a chakra cleansing, and I think it's most often when there is, especially these days, a certain chakra that is blocked. For me, it was in my throat, being able to speak things that I needed to, instead of keeping them inward and letting them build up and becoming a pot that overflows and explodes. But a lot of people's throat chakras are blocked, or heart chakras, or other places. Once you get those aligned and cleared, it's amazing how fluid things do work.
Yeah, agree. Yeah.
So I know. Go ahead.
Yeah, the two chakras that I think are very important that actually show up in the novel are the third eye and the crown chakra. I think those are probably the two of the most fascinating parts of that spirit science, because the crown is actually above the human body, which is really interesting to imagine that.
Well, it really is, and all of my kids, as well as myself and my mother, and who knows who else before her, are gifted in a certain way. I have communicated telepathically with certain beings that really freaked me out. I don't know if it was reptilian. The only thing I could think it was incubus. That's what it reminded me of. But we did telepathically communicate. He's saying he's going to take me. I'm telling him he's not. And then he smiles. And when he did, even through the darkness, you could see his sharp teeth and the way they glimmered, and the saliva or whatever it was, like dripping off of it. But when he kissed me, that reminds me again of the electricity thing. It was a shock that went through my canine teeth, into my brain, and down through my toes. And at that point, what people like to call sleep paralysis,
Yeah.
I think it was something else, but was broken to where I could actually move my feet. So I was kicking my feet at that point, and I'm trying to scream, but I can't. But my husband wakes up and sees this darker than dark individual and pulls me towards him, and at that point it disappears. That was the most afraid I ever was through any paranormal experience in my life. I was even driving back from Farmington, New Mexico to Durango, Colorado, looking in my rearview mirror thinking this thing is probably in the back seat or attached to my car somewhere. I was so afraid of this thing. I'd never had an experience like that. So it makes me wonder, like, was this some sort of reptilian? Was this some sort of demonic thing? I'm not quite sure what the hell it was, but it really did make me think and fear something again.
I think that's what I mentioned, the archons. In the novel, chapter 9, the Divine Warrior, where I talk about Colonel McGeorge, he has a similar experience that he talks about, where he also is attacked while he is sleeping, and what he did to get rid of it was he said, "In the name of Jesus, I command you to leave." And sure enough, the archon left. So there's an element there that has to do with the power of the entity called Jesus on these archons that they have a fear about, which is pretty interesting.
It is. So what exactly, for our listeners that don't know, is an archon?
An archon is a negative, interdimensional, what they called a demon.
So it kind of integrates with the spiritual as far as what people know as demons and, like you said, another realm sort of entity.
Right.
Along the same lines.
Yeah.
Super creepy. Like we never had enough to worry about before.
Well, they tend to attack, first of all, individuals that seem to have either certain spiritual knowledge or a role, and I mean, there's a reason on who they select, so that not everyone is going to get that treatment. But if you do get that treatment, I would follow what the colonel did, which is just to say, "In the name of Jesus, I command you to leave," and I'm sure it'll work. And if you meditate, make sure that you protect yourself while you meditate, because that's also another method that they can get to, from what I understand. So you need to kind of shield yourself from the negative energies when you meditate, or else they could affect you in a negative way.
And it's interesting you say that. Like, my husband has said to me, it's due to you being involved in the paranormal that these things are happening, or even my father said to my mom, it's due to you doing these things that this is happening. You can even go to a music fest or to the grocery store or anywhere. If you have any sort of opening in your aura, if you're depressed or you got other things going on, there can be a chink in that light where a parasite or some sort of attachment can latch on. I don't think you even have to be involved with the paranormal to have something latch on to you and try to derive your energy or whatever it may be. But for you to say that about being a certain individual that these things are attracted to, a lot of the kids, like my siblings and my family, have issues due to my mother and the decisions she made. She knew when exactly she was going to die. She knew how it was going to happen, and she wanted to plan her funeral. My grandpa didn't like it, and they had a little dispute about it, but then he realized what she was saying she truly believed. So, okay, he helped her plan her funeral and such. But even though she made this decision, we didn't. But I think it's, like you said, due to the spiritual energies, or it could even be a light that these things are attracted to. Something has been after us, and So the experiences I've had, even though my kids are 5, 8, 16, and 20 years old, I let them know what I've experienced, how I've learned to battle it, and things that have protected me along the way, because I know they're going to have to deal with it too. I don't want that to be, but that's what it is. So a lot of people keep that to themselves, and they don't share that information. For you guys to be a group and be able to share your experiences, your energies, your powers, so on and so forth, I think that made you stronger as a unit to get through what you did in this book. It's just mind-blowing to read this stuff. I'm just like, holy shnikes. I'm taken aback, for real. It's intriguing.
Well, for the readers, there's a lot to take in at every chapter. But the neat thing about the way I wrote the book is that every chapter reads like a short story. So a person could read the first couple chapters, put it down, and go back to read it, starting with chapter 3, and not have a problem with the continuity or anything like that. And everything that there's a plot, of course, to get to chapter 15, which is the soft tribunal, where our heroes, for lack of a better word, get a counseling from a higher entity, and throughout the book, though, they're I stay with the plot, but there's also some subplots which are there for entertainment for the reader, so that there's almost like some surprise pieces that I sprinkle in to kind of connect certain events with certain individuals, and also have some common events or common experiences between individuals, and they don't realize it until they talk about it.
Well, yeah, and throughout you guys have talked about, I don't know, in the paranormal we call them vortexes or vortices, like places where things come in. You talked about a wormhole. Is this how these different entities come in? I know not too long ago, and it seems like yesterday, but it was probably like 3 or 4 years ago, there was a wormhole or a black hole, but there was something, instead of being sucked into it, shot out of it. Are they using these to transport?
Well, that makes me think of a couple of things. I think the wormholes are to bend space, so that it doesn't take them a long time to travel from one end of the galaxy to another end. And I did go through a wormhole in an out-of-body meditation, and to me, I think it was more spiritual than it was as far as like functional, going to one place or another. It was an amazing experience, where my heart raced. I was vibrating. My body was vibrating, and it was like I was in a hypersonic roller coaster. Really amazing. But getting to the going from one dimension to another dimension. I think you asked, is that how entities move? What's happening right now at CERN, and you know what CERN is, right? It's the underground laboratory in Switzerland and France. They're playing with
the God particle and doing collisions that they think they're keeping
what they're really
intact.
What they're really trying to find out, and what they discovered, again, when we exploded the atomic bomb, and we caused that alarm throughout the universe. It was because we don't understand its impact not only on our dimension, but it actually causes damage to other dimensions. That is what everyone in the universe is concerned about with us having the atomic bomb. We don't understand the damage we are doing to entities that we don't even know or see. So I think our scientists have learned from contact with certain entities that it's possible to break the barrier between this dimension and another dimension. And I think CERN is what they're trying to do it in a controlled manner, because when you do it with the atomic bomb, it's not in a controlled manner and you can cause grave damage. I think what they're trying to do with CERN is to actually find out if they can break the barrier in a less damaging manner, in a controlled manner. And we should be concerned about that.
Well, yeah, how are you supposed to contain this atomic sort of explosion? And they call it the God particle. Supposedly this is the one that was part of the Big Bang, so on and so forth. And they keep doing these little collisions and everything's okay. We have it contained. Nothing is wrong. But then you have the Mandela effect, and it all began there. Mandela was put in prison and died. Well, no, he didn't. He became president and all this other stuff happened, and it seemed like after that, it was kind of like dominoes falling or something. Like these different random things would change. Even, Star Wars, Luke, I am your father, and then people are saying, no, it says, no, I am your father. No, motherfucker, like when he first said it, it was Luke, I am your father, and me and my husband were on the same page for a while, and then eventually he started to say, no, it's not Luke, I am your father, it's no, I am your father. I'm like, okay, alternate dimensional Vern, whatever you say. There's so many things that are changing that millions of us know and remember, and then others of us don't, and we have this other reality, and I think it has a lot to do with CERN. That's the only thing that really explains it, because nothing like this ever started to happen until they started to mess with that God particle and do these collisions. Thinking they're containing it, how do you do that? Even with the, some people call it hydrogen bomb, but the atomic bomb, when it goes off, it's a mushroom, and the energy and the shock wave, okay, so the flat shock wave goes forever. Could you imagine the one that goes up into the air and into space even? Past our atmosphere?
Sure.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you bring up a good point that I still have a problem, considering what, that Mandela effect. I it's one of those things that I just, I can't believe it. But there's so many people that will actually, be emphatic about it. And it's not something that I'm going to argue or discuss, but it certainly is an interesting and plausible concept. And I think perhaps CERN may have something to do with that. I'm sure that, they're not telling us everything that's going on or why they're doing it. And I'm pretty certain it has to do with trying to find the secrets between the dimensions.
And I do believe that and I never believed this like before 5 years ago, but there are alternate dimensions. There are copies of us, and there's just the little slightest difference. It's hard to see if you really look at it, but I think the people in our dimension are being replaced with other dimensional people, and I don't know, I think it's these little flashes and little collisions that they're doing that is causing this. And when I hear myself say that, I feel kind of ignorant, like, yeah, that's a really ignorant hypothesis or whatnot, but that's the only thing that really makes sense now, because it is the very smallest things, like the Bernstein Bears and the picture of the guy holding the ham leg then turned into a turkey leg, and there's so many different things that have changed, even the spelling of Fruit Loops, like, it's insane. It's the little tiniest, smallest thing that people don't generally notice, But then when you really look at it and recollect, what your memory is, the majority says it's this, when the smaller number, who could be interdimensional or whatever the fact may be, says it's something else. It's so intriguing. Like, you could talk about this forever. Another rabbit hole.
True. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so I feel really
All right.
bad. Jojo had a question in the chat room, and I keep meaning to get to it, but there's so many things I want to talk about. He said he's convinced that we're testing craft that's cloaked in some way, and they're using lasers to heat the path for the craft to travel. This makes the craft go much faster with less drag. And then he said also maybe best to define evil. If evil is killing the soul and the body, then it's evil. Do the unborn have souls? My husband, and we've talked about this whole abortion agenda that they keep trying to pass with the second stimulus check, and trying to sneak it through in different kind of sneaky ways. But he's like, I'm convinced that when they're in there, they're intelligent beings. Like, they know what's going on. And I've heard people recount that, there's a little spirit being following them around. It could be the spirit of the child that's in their belly. But they're intelligent. He talked to them and moved from one side of my big old bulbous pregnant belly to another, and talked to them, and they'd follow his voice. You could see the hand through the skin coming out and touching his face, and they're intelligent. It's like once they have that heartbeat, and the brain is constantly building, and there's some form of intelligence for a while. But to take it away from everybody, because there is rape, there is inbreeding, there's all kinds of different things that do happen to where this person shouldn't be re-victimized by having to have this child and then look into the eyes of its rapist or whatnot. A lot of times that does not happen. Some people choose to do it, but it should be up to the individual. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a really, really hard thing, but like I said, if they weren't trying to be so sneaky about it and try to sneak it in through other bills like Pelosi's doing and stuff, I mean, it'd be a little different, but man, it's a really complicated agenda.
Well, you bring up some salient points. So when you're talking about the child responding to stimulus, that's a very advanced stage that the child is in, and what I was talking about was early, and you like to think that that kind of decision, which is really a difficult decision that the woman lives with for the rest of her life, regardless of what decision she makes, that decision should be made as early as possible, and that so you stay with trying to stay with a life form that is not entirely human, that doesn't have the sensory that we have, and certainly is not connected with a spirit. And that's what my belief is about that subject matter. When we start to get past that, when the child starts to form and he has a functioning brain, to me that should be restricted, unless it's it's because of the health and or the safety of the woman herself. It's a very sensitive topic, and but there should be much more discussion about it, involving science than just beliefs.
For sure. It's pretty intricate and detailed, and there's a lot of stuff that goes along with it. And people are saying, well, you go to Harlem or you go to these other places, and it seems like in these ghetto areas or whatnot, they're putting up these clinics to have this as basically a form of birth control. Hey, you did something, you're not ready for the outcome or the consequences, here you go. That could be the case, and then there's stem cell research and things like that really do help us. And the whole Georgia Guidestones were only supposed to be at a certain populace. we're well beyond that. So what do we do? I mean, even in China, most people are looking for a male. What happens to the female that's born? I've heard of different things going on with that, but I mean, this is a whole different topic. But I want to go back to your book and things within that. So these experiences that you had when you were in the Air Force and with these certain people, did this help you to realize certain things that were actually factual that you never knew could be possible before?
Well, the experience in the Air Force where I did find um, the cryogenic chamber, it was, I guess, validated when I read the book by Phil Corso called The Day After Roswell, and in that book he describes taking the cadavers, shipping them to the base that I mentioned in the book where I was at. So it's pretty evident that there's a lot of a lot of both circumstantial evidence and real evidence that points to that place where I was at. And once I put all of that together, it certainly made a direction for me on wanting to learn more about the suppression of information related to UFOs and ETs. One website that I latched onto early on, like around 2009, was Stephen Greer's website, where he had many people do their testimony, and they were from various branches of the military, CIA, private pilots, all that, and they explain what happened to them involving UFOs or extraterrestrials. And I thought that was another element that helped me get pointed in the right direction.
We actually had a member of the We Are Maradox Media after party talk about bearing his testimony in church, and then the church is supposed to listen to that and then decide what his membership is. But I remember being in church and bearing my testimony, what my beliefs are, and it's really a freeing thing to do. But for some people it's really hard because you do worry about that judgment and ridicule and what people are going to think or say about you. But I think the big picture is really bigger than that. It really doesn't matter what other people think. You need to use the gifts you're given, use your mind, use your common sense to, like I said before, adapt and overcome and become better individuals and help each other as well in the process. That's a big thing, is helping each other through this process, because it is really hard. A lot of people call this hell on earth. It's really sucky sometimes, but I don't think it's really hell. But it is hard to get through sometimes. It's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And like you said, through even religious practices or things you've been through throughout your life, things can stunt your spiritual progress.
Yeah. The one thing that I would want readers to take from the book, and someone often asks me, well, what do you want people to think of when they read your book? Because there's a lot of thought-provoking stuff in there. Is that if you're an atheist, consider that there is a higher power involved in creation of everything you see around you, even though you can't see, you can't touch it, but it's there. Likewise, if you're a religious person, consider that the things that you believe in, the things that you cannot touch and you cannot see, those higher powers, consider that those can be explained using science. So that's where I bridge the gap between science and religion, where the truth is really somewhere in between. And the other interesting thing is that I've had more pushback from atheists than I have had from religious people on this book. And that's because when you're an atheist, it's a self-learned thing, and it comes from something that happened in your life that was profound, that made you think there's no way that a God could put this kind of stuff on me or on my family. So the atheists usually, say that we're on our own. The reason that things are happening is because you can't say that there's a divinity if all of this bad stuff is happening around us, that we're really on our own. And the religious people, they are taught what they are believing in from the very beginning, either through their childhood or someone, but usually it's not from a spiritual experience, unless there was a life or death situation, I suppose, and they were born again. But most of them are just taught, and that's probably why I get so much pushback from the atheists on this book.
Well, like, they don't believe in God or all these other things. Like, what do you believe in? And I've known so many people from so many different religions, especially Catholicism, that are atheists. Like, this would not have happened if there was a God, and there is that major doubt. But a lot of times, the things that happen to us, no matter how bad they are, like me losing my mother to a drunk driver, my whole family being torn apart, my 3 older siblings going with their dad, me and my little brother going with our dad, and just our whole world being torn apart. At first you don't realize what the lesson is or why this happened. It's so unfair, and you have that hate towards God or whoever the higher being is, and you don't understand it, and then that's where a lot of people's beliefs and faith are destroyed. But for me, I believe no matter how good or bad it is for a reason. If you learn from it, it's not a mistake, it's a lesson, and it is a learning process, and that's why we're here. It's kind of like being in spirit prison. I heard about that being in church. When people die, sometimes instead of going to heaven or hell, they go to a spirit prison where they can learn about Jesus, this and this and that and that, and I'm not sure how true that is, but I do know I've come across spirits that put themselves in purgatory, in this place. Had they not been there in the first place, the reason they killed themselves, took their own lives, or died would not have happened, so they're stuck in this place because of their belief system. It's so intriguing, the different things that do happen to us spiritually, and like I said, it's hard to see what the outcome is supposed to be at first, but once you look back at it, this was not a mistake, it was a lesson. I learned from it, and let's carry on, adapt and overcome, and become all that we need to be, as a spirit individual having this human experience.
Yeah, I agree. Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, it really does. And sometimes I even had a boss look at me like, really? You believe everything happens for a reason? I do. Like, I've been through the good, I've been through the bad, I've been through the really shitty. Like, everything does happen for a reason. Had this not happened, I would not be where I am right now. There's different paths you can choose. It's up to you to learn and make the right decisions. Every choice makes you basically who you are. Even in the end, like when you die, you're not automatically a good person or a bad person. You're basically who you were when you died. Just because you died doesn't make you different. You're still that person. Right. With those beliefs and those different things and your free agency. It's just so intriguing, like, why there are still spirits here. Why are people haunted? And why are aliens coming in and interacting with certain parts of us? My son has 6 fingers on his right hand, and I'm like, that's totally alien. and it's amazing. My adopted mom, her father or grandfather had 6 fingers on his right hand too. Even though we're not genetically connected, we're still connected in some way. Is that a alien anomaly, or is that just a genetic anomaly? Inquiring minds want to know.
Yep. There's a lot of strange things that you look at that it makes you wonder, and I'm sure that there is an explanation, but not everyone has the explanation. We're trying.
Well, and a lot of times you won't know till you're there. We're not meant to know certain things.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
yeah, in the alien or paranormal, whatever field, we're looking for these answers. We might not ever find them till we're on the other side. It'd be awesome if we could come back and inform the people that are still investigating it. Hey, this is this and that is that. But I think it, for every individual, is different. I was talking earlier about Lily, who told me about her past life. She, I believe, was probably in the Navy. She was a medical medical nurse in the field. So generally, that's somebody from the Navy. She said she had gotten shot. Before she told me any of this, I caught her with a key lanyard, and she's tying it around her leg. I'm like, Lily, don't do that. It's going to cut off your circulation. It's going to be all tingly and prickly and like pins and needles. You're not going to like it. And she's like, Mom, I have to tie it off or I'm going to bleed out. She's only a year and a half old at this point. What sort of toddler uses this form of communication in words? Like, it was just mind-blowing. She told me she was a tall male. She had blonde curly hair. She was a nurse in the military, and she had been shot in the field. So I'm thinking perhaps Vietnam or some World War. I'm thinking Vietnam. And then even today, she's 5 now. She doesn't remember saying that. I remember her saying that, and none of my other kids ever said anything like that. She's the only one I know that was recycled. Otherwise, my kids are spiritually gifted and learning, and I'm trying to just give them the keys to stay on the light side.
That's cool.
So we have about 7 minutes, and the other thing I was going to mention is my oldest daughter, her infant picture, she was so wide awake. Generally, they're like sleeping or whatever. She's wide awake looking at the camera, and her little long, spindly alien fingers. My brother's like, Sister, your daughter looks like an alien. I'm like, shut the F up. She's not, but are we really hybrids? Like, is that what the genetic anomaly is on that Me 21 genetic test or something? Like, I know there's people from a certain place in Switzerland, not too far from France, that have this different genetic anomaly that sometimes when they try to have children, their kids can die. Like, these days we have an anti-serum or whatnot for it, to where the mother and child don't try to kill each other, so the pregnancy could go to full term. But back in the day, like, is this a certain race that came from somewhere else that has this different genetic anomaly? Have you heard of anything like that?
No, I haven't. I've heard that certain traits can be traced back to certain extraterrestrial races, like, for instance, red hair is traced to the Anunnaki. Also, blue eyes can be traced to the Pleiadians. There's a host of traits that we have that we take for granted, but if we really put our heads to it and start to just open our minds, we could probably find out our true origins and understand, really what is the secret or the answer to our origins,
There's so many questions out there, and I felt bad because, okay, so I did The Biggest Loser. I lost a bunch of weight. Our team won like twice, and I was drinking this muscle milk, and I'm thinking it's because I drank this muscle milk. My son had 6 fingers on his right hand instead of just 5. He's got an extra thumb, but it
Wow.
works. And the doctors were pushing for me to get it removed, and your kid's gonna be bullied due to this. I'm like, kids are bullied all the time for no apparent reason. This is his decision. This is his body part. I'm not going to say, this is unacceptable, I'm going to have it removed. To me, it's beautiful. Like, this is a part of him. This is him as a being. He could be the world's best pitcher or a basketball player or whatever he decides to do in the future. That is his decision, not mine. And I remember they got so pissed off at me that I would not do the procedure. I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I don't care what the fuck anybody thinks. I'm not going to do it. Like, that is a part of him. And I did feel guilty, like, oh, maybe it's the muscle milk, and I did all kinds of investigations on that, and it wasn't. It was just this genetic anomaly.
That's interesting. That really is.
It's kind of weird. But it made me wonder as far as the alien thing and why were they following us, and it never happened before until I was pregnant with him, and then after he was born. Is it connected to him? And then my daughter, who is younger than him, we didn't expect to have her, and my husband's like, how'd that happen? I'm like, how do you think it happened? But I was grateful because he wasn't going to be stuck with 2 codgers and being all bored. Like, he'd have a sibling to rival with. But yeah, those are the 2 that had the alien experience. They said it was a dream, but when they had that shared experience, shared dreams don't happen a lot. I think this was an actual alien experience they had.
Right. That is that does probably at least offer some answers, right?
So we are at the end of our time. Would you like to tell our listeners again how to find your book and how to find you for questions?
Sure. The website is www.thedisclosureparadox.com, all one word, where they can read excerpts, reviews, and all kinds of information on the book. And there's some nice graphics too. I have a Facebook page called The Disclosure Paradox, the science fiction novel, and there's about 279 people right there right now. And there's all kinds of individuals that are involved in the UFO circles. There's some very famous names that you'll find there. And finally, the book is available on Amazon.com. And if you have a reader, it's available on Kindle too.
And that is The Disclosure Paradox.
Correct.
Awesome. And I want to ask you, can you tell our listeners what a paradox is? But we don't got time for that. But thank you again, Paul, for being on. And if ever in the future you want to be on, if you have another book that you're writing or something else that comes up, like, definitely let us know, because we're learning from each other and we'd love to learn from you. You're amazing. I love your energy, and it's so easy to communicate with you and get some actual really good answers.
Oh, thank you. It was a good interview. I appreciate it.
No worries. And thank you again. And thank you to all of our friends on We Are Maradox Medias Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, iHeartRadio, and wherever else beyond the Omniverse you're listening tonight. I'm so glad you were here tonight. Next weekend, we got Jim Kelly, the paranormal photographer, and Bill Hauser. Ghost Box. Woot woot.